The movie opens in a small town, with an ambulance in sight. A police officer says he has never seen anything like this before. It appears that something tore the victim apart, and the internal organs spill all over the street. A teenage boy named John is watching this scene, and then he rides away on his bicycle. Shortly after, he arrives at his house, which is also a funeral home run by his family. John starts working alongside his mother, April, and aunt, Margaret. April is scared after hearing that another man has been found dead in their town. But John begins to joke, saying that more dead people mean more money for their business. In the following scene, John arrives at the crime scene where the victim was killed. Here, he discovers a strange pool of black liquid that he cannot identify. He then goes to school, where he is promptly called to the principal's office, and he learns that his mother has also been summoned by the principal. It turns out that, for a recent assignment on famous people, John wrote an essay about a notorious serial killer. The principal advises him that, while it is natural to be curious about the world and death, he should refrain from going too far. Later during lunch, John sits with his only friend, Max, who complains about receiving a D- despite writing about Einstein. A group of bullies suddenly approaches them, and the leader, Rob, taunts our poor boy, claiming he smells like something dead, while we see John scratch his fork under the table, containing his anger. The bully then throws some mashed potatoes at his face and calls him a freak before leaving, but John makes no fuss about it. After school, John meets his therapist, Dr. Neblin, and we learn that John is a diagnosed sociopath, who has set several rules for himself to avoid causing trouble. One of the rules is that if he feels like killing someone, he simply smiles at them. Despite this, John is concerned that he may act violently someday, but Dr. Neblin assures him that, while he is a sociopath, this does not imply that he will act on his impulses. He tells John that he has control over his destiny, and that he is a good person. Next, John pays a visit to his 79-year-old neighbor, Mr. Crowley, who has become extremely frail due to his age. John helps the old man in building a fire pit. While he's working, Crowley asks for help with his phone so he can send his wife, Kay, a picture of him to her. John helps right away, making the old man happy. Just then, John's attention is drawn to the girl next door, Brooke, whom he has a crush on. In the next scene, he returns to the funeral home, and learns that they have received the man's body who was found dead earlier that morning. The family begins working together to prepare the corpse, which turns out to be a challenge as it's literally in pieces, and Aunt Margaret discovers that one kidney is missing. This makes John speculate that the killer might have taken it, but his mother doesn't like the idea. The following morning, John watches the news and discovers that another murder has occurred. The same black substance was found at this crime scene as well. After school, John and Max visit the crime scene, and try to understand the killer's pattern, and they realize that the attacks are more brutal than needed. The scene then shifts to Halloween night, where Max and John are trick-or-treating. Since the town is plagued by the haunting murders, Max's father decides to join them with a baseball bat for protection. John then notices a suspicious person walking down an alley, but he soon disappears without a trace. Later that night, the boys go to a dance party, where Brooke approaches John. She appears to like him as well, but this is when Rob the bully shows up and begins bothering John. Our hero tries his best to compose himself, but the bully crosses all limits when he insults his mother. Having had enough, John reveals to him that he's a diagnosed sociopath. He claims that Rob is just an object to him, and that he is very interested in cutting him open to see what is inside. The bully Rob gets a little alarmed by this and leaves the area, not before calling John a freak. Days later, Dr. Neblin and John have another therapy session on a rooftop. Dr. Neblin reveals that Rob complained to the school counselor about his threats, claiming they gave him nightmares. But John says that Rob is merely a bully. Moments later, Dr. Neblin points out a rare duck through binoculars. John looks through them, but notices the same strange man he saw in the alleyway on Halloween night. Intrigued, he begins to follow him around town. After a while, the man approaches John's 79-year-old neighbor, Mr. Crowley, who is about to go ice fishing and offers to help. The latter agrees without hesitation, and they drive off in his car. Fearing for Mr. Crowley's life, John decides to follow them on his bicycle. In the next scene, the two men arrive at a frozen lake, where John hides behind a tree to observe them. The strange man then uses a chainsaw to cut a hole in the ice, and Crowley thanks him for his help. But when Mr. Crowley is coughing, the strange man grabs a knife and attempts to attack him from behind. But then this happens. To John's surprise, the old guy swiftly turns around and thrusts a twisted branch that appears out of nowhere into the man's chest, killing him instantly. Mr. Crowley then removes the man's lung, and then rips open his own chest, extracts his blackened lung, and replaces it with the man's. This replacement seems to make it much easier for him to breathe. Witnessing this horrific scene, John realizes that Crowley isn't just a normal serial killer. The scene then cuts to John lying on a morgue table, still shaken by what he witnessed. He later sees a news report about a man named Emmett, who disappeared in Arizona 42 years ago. There were signs of struggle at his home, but the body was never discovered. Strangely, similar to the recent murders, a black liquid was found at the scene. In the evening, John follows Crowley and his wife, Kay, to a ballroom dance. The couple is seen dancing happily together, but the old man struggles to move due to severe arthritis in his legs. As a result, another old man named Greg takes Kay for a dance, while Crowley watches and thinks of something. After the dance, Crowley takes his wife to a restaurant, and the curious John follows them. However, he accidentally comes across his mother and Dr. Neblin eating dinner together. They are nervous to see him, and assume John has followed his mother all the way to the restaurant. A furious John accuses them of secretly dating, but April clarifies that they only meet sometimes to discuss John's medical progress. The next day, John continues to follow Crowley, and ends up at a local barbershop. The barber turns out to be Greg, and the two men appear to be chatting happily. But then, when Greg goes inside to fetch some scissors, Crowley quickly lowers the blinds, turns off the open sign, and locks the door. He then goes into the other room and tries to murder Greg. Upon witnessing this, John panics and sets off an alarm outside the barbershop. Two cops happen to be nearby, and they rush over to investigate. Crowley lets them in without hesitation. But then, he quickly kills the police as well. John watches the whole thing in horror and feels completely powerless. Moments later, Crowley emerges from the back room with improved legs and is no longer limping. Here John realizes that the old man must have taken Greg's legs and replaced his own. The boy then watches on as Crowley drags Greg's body into his car and drives away. In the following scene, John watches the news and notices a crowd gathered in front of Greg's house, causing a commotion. They suspect him of being the killer since two cops were found dead at his barbershop, while he's still missing. The next morning, Crowley is clearing snow off his car when he finds a note that says, "I know who you are." This makes the old man terrified, while John watches him from a window and smiles. After this incident, John learns that Crowley gets so scared that he doesn't come out of the house for a week. One day, John goes to visit him, and finds out that his health has worsened significantly. He helps the old man climb the stairs, and Kay informs him that her husband refuses to see a doctor. John takes him to the bathroom, while Crowley expresses gratitude to the young man for his help, and admits that he's very worried about Kay. He can't imagine leaving her alone if something happens to him. The scene then shifts to Christmas. In the evening, while wearing a panda ski mask, John calls Mr. Crowley from a payphone and introduces himself as the person who sent the note. Although the old man is unwilling to talk, John presses him, asking whether it hurts to remove his own organs. Crowley admits that it hurts, but he has no choice but to do it. John then inquires about Emmett from Arizona, and asks what he took from him. Crowley responds that he took Emmett's life, which would have probably been long. But then, during their conversation, John realizes that Crowley is driving, which means he's probably coming after him. Shortly after, Crowley manages to find him, though he can't see his face. John immediately leaves the payphone, while the old man chases after him. Luckily, the latter eventually escapes, and arrives at his friend Max's house. Moments later, as he looks out the window, he notices that Crowley has followed him to the house. Max asks him what he's doing here since they haven't met in 2 weeks, and John responds that he is losing his mind and breaking the rules. He explains that he has rules to help him stay normal and out of trouble. One of the rules is to spend time with Max, because they do normal things together. Max is shocked to learn that they have been friends for 3 years just to make him feel normal. This makes him furious, and he kicks John out of the house. With no other option, John puts on the panda mask and heads to his house. But after walking for a while, he shockingly notices Crowley attacking Max's father. John panics and attempts to pull the poor man away. But the monster, who doesn't recognize him, begins growling and orders him to stay away. Realizing he can't do anything in this situation, John walks away. Having had enough, John decides to take action against Crowley, and he knows that the man loves his wife more than anything in this world. Therefore, he visits a store and purchases a GPS tracker system with a range of 2 to 3 miles. He then goes to Crowley's house and offers to help Kay carry groceries, and he uses this opportunity to place the tracker in Crowley's car. Here, he learns that Crowley has a severe heart condition. John suspects that the old man will need to go out in his car and kill someone to get a new heart. That night, John awakens when he hears Crowley's car start up. After the old man leaves, he sneaks into his house while wearing his panda mask. He then enters Crowley's room, takes a photo of Kay using her phone, and decides to send it to her husband. Up next, John takes a pillowcase to cover her face and make the scene appear more threatening, but she awakens abruptly. He tries to calm her down, before finally hitting her with a clock. And this causes her to go completely silent, and he notices blood on the pillows. John feels horrible that he killed an innocent person, so immediately calls Dr. Neblin, and confesses that he has finally done what he had feared all along. However, the doctor reassures him that he's a good person, and that they can make things right. He requests his location, but a terrified John hangs up the phone. He then checks on Kay again, and turns out that she's still alive. The boy is relieved, so he takes several pictures of her, and sends them to her husband with the caption, "My turn." Moments later, Crowley receives the message, and rushes back to the house. John quickly grabs his things and sneaks out of the house, and we soon witness Crowley appear in full monster form, ready to face the intruder. Outside, John attempts to retrieve the tracker from Crowley's car, but is shocked to discover Dr. Neblin dead in the backseat. This devastates poor John, but he refuses to let Crowley have his heart. He then takes the doctor's body, and hides it in the woods. Later, when John returns home in the morning, he notices Crowley checking his car and discovering the body is gone. The old man looks at John suspiciously, and continues to stare even after he walks away. The scene then cuts to Max's father's funeral, where John is sitting alone on a bench. Moments later, Crowley arrives, and sits beside him, and then he accuses John of attacking his wife. The latter doesn't deny it, and reminds the old man that he also killed his therapist. Crowley responds that it was the doctor's fault for going out in the middle of the night to look for John. Hearing this, John feels guilty about indirectly causing Dr. Neblin's death. He then asks Crowley how much time he has left, to which the old man responds that he has plenty of time to find another heart. Not long after, the funeral concludes, but Crowley begins to cough up blood, and feels very weak. He is left alone when everyone leaves, so John locks the door, and traps him inside. Unfortunately, as John prepares to leave, he learns from his sister that their mother is still inside. John begins to panic, and immediately rushes back in. He heads to the morgue, and finds his mom unconscious, with Crowley sitting in front of her. The old man eerily informs John that he will die soon without a healthy heart, so he needs one at any cost. He demands to know where the doctor's dead body is, and threatens to kill April. John initially pretends to cooperate and claims that the body is in the freezer, but when Crowley moves toward the freezer, he quickly strikes him with a metal bar, injuring him. April then wakes up and is shocked to see Crowley's monstrous hand, so John explains that the old man is the serial killer who has been murdering people. He then asks for her assistance in restraining him, and the two use some straps to tie him to the bed. They decide to perform an embalming procedure, which is typically used to delay the decomposition of a dead body. Performing this on a normal living person can result in immediate death. April then inserts the plug into Crowley's bloodstream, and replaces his strange black blood with embalming fluid. This causes the monster to scream in pain, but the procedure is still successful. Not long after, a large, black, oily monster slides out of the old man's body. They both anxiously see Crowley transforms into his true form, and John anxiously grabs a suction knife and attempts to threaten Crowley with it. Surprisingly, Crowley accepts his fate, and asks John to look after his wife. Realizing he will never see her again in his human form, he stabs himself with the knife, killing him on the spot. As a result, both the old man's and the monster's corpses melt into black oil. The next day, the police discover Dr. Neblin's body, and the local newspaper reports that Crowley is missing. Later, John pays a visit to Kay, who describes how she and her husband met in their 30s and began dating. One day, Crowley suddenly burst into tears, and told her that he loved her more than anything in the world. Despite Crowley's illness in recent years, he promised to be by her side until the end. In the final scene, John, April, and Margaret are preparing Dr. Neblin for burial. The story of how Kay and Crowley fell in love makes John realize he must find happiness too, and this is where the movie ends.